Hi there and welcome to this brief video about Google Forms in Google Drive. Google Forms is a great tool that allows you to do a myriad of things by just creating a few questions. Google Forms allows you to create surveys for the purpose of collecting data. It also allows you to survey students to get feedback on a course or a unit of instruction for the intent of guiding future instructions. You can also create quiz questions to create a formative assessment that provides you with the type of feedback to also guide instruction on what currently needs to be retaught or what you can move on to. So as you can see, Google Form is a very useful tool. What we're going to do right now is create one. So let's begin by, in the Google Drive menu, clicking the New button, which brings up the option of creating a form. And we're going to choose a form. Once your new form opens, it brings you to a blank template where it initially gives you one question to work with, and it shows you that your form is untitled. At the top of the form, you have the ability to name it, and you can name it in two places. So we'll go ahead and name our form. And we're going to look at the tools at the top that by default students must log into their EUHSD.net accounts in order to access your form. By default, it would be a good idea if you're creating a quiz to check the box that automatically collects respondents' EUHSD.net username for the purpose of providing them feedback when the quizzes get graded. By default, there is no theme on a Google form, but you're able to change themes by clicking on the Change Themes option, and it brings up a list of themes that you have to choose from. We can go through the list, and I'm just going to go ahead and choose this one. And that looks pretty good. So now we're going to go back to editing the questions, and we will begin by placing our first question in the question title. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to enter our first question. And the first question for any form, if you're creating quizzes, is you want to ask, what is your first name? And we're going to click the drop-down menu because by default the first question shows it's a multiple choice, but you see you have different types of questions that you can choose from. So we're going to make this a text question, and we're going to make that this question is required by checking the box, which means students cannot submit this form until they've answered this question. And we'll click Done. Now we're going to move on to add an item, and since we've asked what is your first name, the next question would be, what is your last name? And we're going to check the box that requires this question to be answered. And we're going to click Done. Now, for the purposes of identifying what student is in your class, if you have multiple periods with the same prep, then you would want to add an item and make sure you ask, what period do you have, Ms. Pastor? And we're going to turn this into a multiple choice question where your first option might be period 1, period 2, put a space in there, and make that a required question and click Done. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a few questions to my quiz so that we have something to use once it's done and test out our quiz grading script called Flubaroo. So I'm going to add a few multiple choice questions to our quiz. So now we've created three simple questions for students to answer. It's a multiple choice quiz, and it'll give you an opportunity to get some feedback to see where they are in the learning of your class. The last thing you might want to do with your form is check on the bottom to see what the confirmation page will say when a student submits their response. So by default, it simply says your response has been recorded. You can allow students to submit another response if this is a survey. If it's a quiz, you may not want them to submit a second time, so you might want to uncheck that box. You can change your default message to anything that you want to. Thank you. And that will be what your students see when the quiz is done. So the last thing that you want to do as the teacher, if this is a quiz, is to be the first person to take your quiz and provide all the correct answers, obviously, because for the purpose of creating an answer key to grade everybody else's quiz. So in order to do that, we're going to have to go to the live form and take the quiz ourselves. So we're going to view the live form. And when the live form comes up, you want to answer the questions to create your answer key. So my first name is going to be answer. My last name is going to be key. And that's fine. I'll make it period 1. And then you're going to answer all of the questions correctly. So, what is the body's primary source of fuel? And then I'm going to click submit. Now my responses have been recorded, and it shows right over here, thank you for taking the nutrition quiz. And now I'm going to be able to go to my spreadsheet and see my answers. But before I go and look at the spreadsheet to see my answers, I want to take this quiz one more time as a student so that we can demonstrate later what the Flubaroo script does for grading. So this time I'm going to go ahead and fill it in as if I were a student. This time I'm going to answer one question incorrectly. So I've got my sample, and now I'll be able to go to the spreadsheet to go look at and see what it looks like. So here we are back at our spreadsheet, and you can see that I have 2 responses recorded by the Google form. And if you pan across, you could see all of the answers. And you also see that they are listed by default according to what time they were filled in. And the first response, making it easier for yourself, is your answer key. This is what we will be able to use to grade all of the other responses that come into your spreadsheet. So that concludes this portion of Google Forms. The next video will show you how to use the script Flubaroo to grade your quizzes. Thanks for watching.